Absolutely. All of the above. It's very sport dependent. And we'll go through all three. We'll go through sport to sport, athlete to athlete, and differences of sexes. Sport to sport, very different because you have different weigh-in formats. With MMA, we've got a 30 to 36 hour window, especially with our UFC guys. I know I can push that water cut period a bit more because, as I was talking about earlier, with the shift and fluid and all that nerdy stuff, with 30 to 36 hours, I'm pretty confident even if we cut a bit more water, we have the time to get it back in. I can rehydrate. Amateur boxing, same day weigh-ins. Never ever do that. You can't. You if you weigh in and you've got to compete within 3 to 6 hours, you've got a lot of issues there where you can't rehydrate effectively. And then if you're cutting carbs or glycogen depleting, what we do in that week, are you going to be able to get that back in by the time it comes to comp and get your best performance? You think of like jujitsu. You can go weigh in for jujitsu. I've had comp weigh in for jujitsu and I've cut stupid amounts of weight. And then I walk in and they go, hey, you're on. Before I've even sipped water and you go, oh man, like I'm a shell of a human. Okay, I guess I'll just go get ragdoll for a while. Like that's a real reality that happens. So you can't be doing that. You can't be cutting water. You can't be cutting glycogen if you want a good performance. So it's very, very sport dependent, and that depends on the weigh-in format, the time you have to recover and all of that, athlete to athlete. And this is a big thing is where we talk about having, clinical competence and being able to recognize these things and being able to read body composition scans and then being able to read blood work and look at a dietary assessment or a medical history assessment and look and go, okay, you know what, like Dennis, for you, it probably is the best situation that we spend a bit more time dieting and coming down slowly because you know what, the second that we go in too deep of this energy deficit or low energy availability, your testosterone goes down and you just become a horrible human. And I don't want you to get separated from your partner. So I'm not going to do that to you. So we're going to keep you up high and we're going to program a couple extra weeks. And for you, Dennis, we're going to do 4 weeks extra in your camp. And then you're going to wake up on weight where I get, your brother Dylan who goes, okay, well, Dylan, you're actually really good and your body seems to handle this. And for whatever reason, we can talk about that later. You can go into a bit more of a deficit and you can do this a bit more aggressively. And I know from what we've tried with these fight week strategies, you can cut a lot more water. So for you, we're going to do this approach because that's a lot more appropriate. Your body's physiology seems to be able to support that. And again, I think clinical competence comes with me monitoring both you, Dennis, and Dylan. Okay, well, that's my theory about that. That's great. But I need to be checking up on bloods. I need to be checking in with you each week. I need to be checking all of these things and monitoring that intervention. How successful was it? Because at the end of the day, I might have got it completely wrong. So that person to person, like individual athlete to athlete is super, super, super important. And like, sure, there's going to be similarities. And you see that between weight classes where people come in, especially if they've got similar training schedule and blah, blah, blah. But it's athlete to athlete. And then you add on a layer of that, like what you said before, is the sex differences and females and males. And I always say it is like the best quote I ever heard about this was that you can talk about the male reproductive system in a 15-minute coffee break, but it's probably going to take you a year's work to figure out the female. And it's because females are so much more complicated creatures than us simpleton males. They've got to carry on the human genome, and we don't. So it's like, even with that, when you've got their cycle, so there's like a whole bunch of things. If they've got a natural menstrual cycle, you have to understand how the hormones fluctuate between that. Not only do you have to understand how the hormones fluctuate, you have to understand the signs and symptoms that come with that natural fluctuation. And then even with that, you're only talking about maybe 50% of the females you're going to work with, because the other 50% are going to be on oral contraceptives or some type of contraceptives where they're getting exogenous hormones put in, progesterone, estrogen, or a combination of both, which are having effects in their body, which could be causing different signs and symptoms. So on top of all those other assessments and all the other things that you're doing, you need to take into consideration, okay, like Susie's coming in and Susie's period's like this and she's got a good natural period, but I know at this point when her estrogen goes up or whatever, she gets really bad cramps and water weight goes up and blah, blah, blah. And she probably can't do these type of trainings. And I need to program my nutrition for that, where I get Susie comes in and she can go through her cycle and she doesn't notice anything. She's basically like a guy. So it's like you have to know all of this. And this is where there's two things, that clinical competence and understanding the physiology and understanding the science and understanding all of these things. One is really important. And then the practical application of all of that and going, okay, how does this fit in the context of this athlete making weight? Because in the big, broad spectrum of all of this, the goal for me and my team is like, how do we do all this and maintain and preserve all and keep these guys healthy and safe? So it's like we need to understand and do all of this. And I think the big problem when it comes into it, and guys just say like, oh, like weight cutting, blah blah blah. It's like it's not just weight cutting. Like I don't really like the term weight cutting because it's like it doesn't encompass all of this. And it's like that's where I can sit back and say, Dennis, you come to me and you go, hey Geordie, like, is this safe for me to make this weight? And it's like, okay, well, this is all the processes we need to go through, and I can outline it. And we can go through your medical history, your bloods, we can go through your body comp, we can do all of this training, we can do your weight cut history, we can blah, 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 do everything else. And then I can make assessments and go, okay, Dennis, we're weighing in at 70 kilos. And then from all this information you gave me over here, I can make pretty close assumptions to how your body will respond during this fight week and blah, blah, blah. And this is the amount of weight that you're going to lose. And then programming off this, this nutrition system that I've taken from Dr. Carl and his team, I think that I can put you through this and then preserve these systems and go through this. So I'm X% confident that we can make this weight and this is all the caveats and this is what we've got to look for. And hey, look, Dennis, in 2 weeks out, if you don't hit this weight target, I'm going to be very concerned for you. And in 1 week out, you don't hit that target, I don't care what you or your coach saying, I'm pulling this fight. And you have to sign this piece of paper and agree with that. So like that's the way we work. And it's like this whole encompassing system, but it's like a big system. And I think there's a big problem because I think one, education, people aren't really aware of all of that and that you can even do that. And then two, like I think a lot of, or some, not a lot, I'd say some coaches, some athletes, some people, they just don't want to know. They don't really care. They're just like, just do it. Just get it done. Get the weight off. Eat celery. Put hot sauce on it. Suck it up and get the weight down. So that's a long-winded answer. But yes, it's very individual. There's a lot of sex differences and it's very different between the sports.